You won't want to miss this. In this video, you'll travel around the world and discover 10 of the most isolated communities on our planet. And luckily for you, we'll take you there so you don't need a passport. All you have to do is hit the like button for us, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for your benefit of getting more informing videos like this. Number 10, as it lies just 380 kilometers or 240 miles south of the Arabian Peninsula. Although politically it does belong to Yemen, as it is part of the Arabian Peninsula and thus West Asia. Geographically, Socotra and the rest of its archipelago belongs to Africa. Number 9, Supai, Arizona. One wild truth is that Supai is only accessible by helicopter, horseback, or an 8-mile hike. Even the mail is delivered by mule. It is a remote village in the southwestern branch of the Grand Canyon. The outstanding part about Supai is the tribal center of the Havasupai tribe, which means people of the green-blue waters, which is a reference to 4 waterfalls along Havasu Creek that are popular with tourists. Number 8, Villa Las Estrellas, Antarctica. Villa Las Estrellas is one of only 2 civilian settlements in the desolate lands of Chile, Antarctica. Villa Las Estrellas, Spanish for Star Town, is a Chilean settlement in Antarctica that's just like any other small town, with a gym, church, public school, and souvenir shop, except it's on the most inaccessible continent in the world. Most of the area is used for research outposts that are populated mostly of scientists. Getting to Antarctica requires a 2-day boat trip from Ushuaia, Argentina, to cross the Drake Passage to enter the most uninhabited continent in the world. Number 7, Coober Pedy, Australia. Coober Pedy is also known as the opal capital of the world, and with a name like that, who wouldn't want to go? We all adore precious gems, stones, and metals. Coober Pedy is a town in northern South Australia, 846 kilometers, which is just about 526 miles north of Adelaide. The far north is a large region of South Australia just near the Northern Territory border. In Coober Pedy, the gem-quality opal was first discovered in 1915, and the opal mining industry has sustained the small town of 3,500 people ever since. It's not too difficult to get there since it's only a 2-hour flight from Adelaide, but there's always a catch. Half of the inhabitants of the opal capital live underground. Yep, that part of the outback is a hidden city. The city is responsible for an estimated 70% of the world's opal production, and it can reach 113 degrees in the shade, assuming you can even find a tree large enough to stand under. But don't hold your breath on finding a tree in this desert. And when night falls, temperatures can get drastically cold. So staying underground keeps a cozy room temperature of about 75 degrees year-round. Today, over half of the population lives in dugouts, and even churches, hotels, museums, and other businesses are in these dugouts. Number 6, Chang, Tibet. Chang, Tibet is known as the roof of the world because Chang's altitudes range from 4,000 to 9,000 feet. You'll need a permit in order to enter, and that might easily cost you several $1,000s. But it is accessible via the Leh Airport, Udhampur Railway Station, or driving from Manali or Srinagar. The vast 990-mile stretch of land across the Tibetan Plateau is home to a nomadic people called the Changpa. And although the arid climate is cold and dry, it maintains an outstanding alpine steppe and meadow ecosystem filled with snow leopards, yaks, Tibetan antelopes, wild donkeys, black-necked cranes, brown bears, blue sheep, and Tibetan sand foxes. The pristine 700,000-kilometer Tibetan Plateau is roughly the size of Germany, Poland, and Lithuania combined. It is a largely uninhabited land with hundreds of snow-capped mountains. Raising livestock provides the primary livelihood for the traditional Tibetan herder communities in the Tang. Number 5, Longyearbyen, Norway. The northernmost town in the world, Longyearbyen, Norway, is so cold that it is illegal to be buried there because bodies won't decompose in the frozen ground. Instead, bodies have to be flown to the mainland for burial. It almost seems cheaper to just be cremated. Then again, most people don't have the minerals to cope with that unbearable frost. The snow gets so thick in the winter that houses have to be built on stilts so they don't slide away when the topsoil melts in the summer. Up there in the high Arctic, the 2,300 residents of Longyearbyen go without sunlight for 5 months of the year. Most travelers chose early March for a visit to coincide with the return of the sun. At that time of year, there is proper daylight and proper nighttime, which is rarely the case in Longyearbyen. The novelty of the midnight sun might wear off after a few sleepless nights. However, especially since you'll be sharing territory with the polar bears. The easiest way to get there is through the Norwegian Airlines, as they offer 3 flights a week, and it is 3 hours from Oslo. Number 4. La Rinconada, Peru. This is not a place that tourists put on their bucket list. It's definitely not an easy place to live. Gold, guns, and garbage is the quick headline that one reporter used to briefly summarize La Rinconada. Although it is popular for gold rings, investment, dental fillings since gold is always in demand, and the conditions are equal to hell on earth. At 5,000 meters or 3 miles in the mountains, workers mine for metal in the highest city in the world in the Puno province. This hell on top of the mountains has no running water or sewage system, and nearly 68% of the population lives below the poverty line according to CNN. And regardless of the gold that's actually there, it decreases day by day. The idea that you can strike it rich in La Rinconada is just a myth. A Ponzi scheme called the Cachareo system is in effect in Rinconada. For 30 days in a row, they mine for one of the many subcontractors without receiving a wage. Then, on the 31st day, they are allowed to keep everything they find in the mine just for that day. It is a promise that lures in thousands of people. However, on that payout day, miners are often sent to areas where there's virtually nothing to find. For these reasons and more, NGOs have described this place and its conditions as modern slavery. Aside from the rubbish littered in the streets and pathways, there's also the extensive environmental pollution to consider. Champanas indicates the rock grinding mills of the trapaceros. The men who separate gold from the lumps of rock via the amalgam process handle mercury without wearing gloves. And even in the surprising event that you want to visit or do business there, getting there is almost as difficult as living there. La Rinconada is a 6-hour ride from the nearest city on unpaved roads with no regular buses. So your best bet is to pray to the heavens and hitch a ride. Number 3. Palmerston, Cook Islands. The Cook Islands are so remote it is only reachable via boat. The population can be counted by one person in a few hours, and these inhabitants are descendants of the Englishman William Masters, who arrived there in 1863 and went on to have 4 wives and 17 children. Although it is an idyllic vibe, it's a place that gets tested with its isolation. Supply ships visit the island only a few times a year. There are only a few telephones, and internet access is only available for 4 hours a day with some very questionable connections. Palmerston is a 2-day sailing voyage away from Rarotonga, the capital of the Cook Islands, and an 8-day trip from Tahiti. Nearly 2,000 miles northeast of New Zealand, Palmerston is 500 miles away from the Cook Islands capital and main populated area. If you are able to deal with the absence of an airport and can stomach a sea voyage without getting seasick, you'll arrive in Palmerston and realize that the islanders are gracious and happy hosts who are willing to barter. Talk about a cashless society. Number 2. Bantam, Cocos, Keeling Islands. With a name like Cocos Islands, you have quickly realized that the island group is named after the coconut, which grew there in profusion even before the deliberate planting of the entire southern atoll as part of the Cluny's Ross estate. Captain William Keeling is believed to have been the first European to sight the islands in 1609 on his return from Bantam in the Dutch East Indies on behalf of the East India Company. However, despite knowledge of the islands for 200 years or more, it was not until the early 19th century that they were settled. Because they lay on a trade route from Europe to the Far East, they were appealing. So, on the 6th day of December in 1825, Captain John Cluny's Ross, who was a Scottish trader, sailed and made a brief landing on the islands. Taking mental note, he returned with his family in 1827 with the intention of commencing a settlement. The Cluny's Ross family, who became known as Kings of the Cocos, owned the islands for more than 150 years. Finally, in 1955, they became a territory of the Commonwealth of Australia, And in 1978, Australia purchased all of the land except the Clunies-Ross family ancestral home. Regardless of which territory or nation claims rights to these islands, the Cocos Malay people may keep their language alive even with a tiny population of about 600. The Cocos Islands are home to the Cocos Malay people whose isolation has helped keep their traditional oral language and religious practices alive. When visitors journey there, in addition to getting acquainted with the local culture, visitors can go kite surfing, snorkeling, surfing, and bird watching. The Cocos Islands are about 1,700 miles from Perth, from which there are about flights twice a week. Number 1. Equilite, Nunavut, Canada. Regarding the topography of this extreme yet gorgeous place, Equilite is situated on gently rolling hills with rocky outcrops and lush tundra valleys. The tides of Frostbire Bay at Equilite rise and fall 8 to 12 meters, which is about 26 to 39 feet, twice a day. These extreme tides give Equilite Nunavut the second highest tides in Canada, after the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia. The main languages are Inuktitut, English, and French. And when traveling, even though through the terrain, weather, food, and attractions might be dismal, the people can be the main decision maker to indicate a good time or a terrible visit. There, the people have known to be extremely friendly. They're outgoing people who love going out on the land, sea, and ice at all times of the year to enjoy a variety of outdoor activities. Equilite is located near beautiful parklands that feature a range of landscapes, mountains, rivers, waterfalls, and ancient Thule sites to visit. The most famous attraction is the Road to Nowhere. While being in the middle of nowhere, the Road to Nowhere offers picturesque scenery that tourists can walk, bike, drive, or ski through until they end up, well, you guessed it, in the middle of nowhere. Other adventures consist of dog sledding, cross-country skiing, and snowmobiling, and are all very popular activities in Equilite. Also, boating, river rafting, canoeing, kayaking, kite skiing, and tobogganing. And in the summertime, there are many scenic places to go hiking, fishing, camping, and berry picking, such as Sylvia Grinnell Park and the Seaside Trail to Apex. Equilite is only accessible by sea or air. However, there are daily flights from Ottawa, which is only about 1,300 miles away. The city enjoys nearly 24 hours of sunshine in late June and early July, with beautiful twilight skies for 2 hours around midnight. That might be the longest twilight aside from that chick flick vampire movie. The shortest days of December have 4 hours of daylight, with the sun hovering on the southern horizon. Northern lights are frequently seen from October to April, and winter temperatures of -10 to -32 degrees Celsius are common. Would you like to visit any of these places? And do you think we should have placed any other locations on our list? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and share this video.